And just so everyone knows, this meeting is being recorded for anyone who wants to go back and watch it who couldn't make it. We did have about 40 people register and we have 28 in now, so I'm guessing a bunch of people are going to want to come back and watch this. So today we have Mr. Rob Southwick from Southwick Associates, who's going to be talking to us about licensed data dashboards. This is kind of a hot topic. I know we talked a lot about this at Forum. This comes up in every regional meeting. And so we're glad to have Rob here today to kind of explain to us what the numbers are, what they mean, and how we can use data dashboards in our professional lives. So thanks, Rob, for being with us today.
No problem, Chris, and I appreciate the opportunity to share the new dashboards. I'll just take over here on the screen. If everyone at first, let me go back to this main screen. As mentioned back during one of the earlier presentations, and we shared an initial dashboard, we encourage you to go ahead and open the dashboard here. I know it's usually not what you do in the webinar to tell people to go to a different web page or pull up other media, but in this case, we're encouraging you to do so. So if you have a split screen or a second device, I encourage you to go ahead and follow this link down here to asafishing.org/data-dashboard and see the dashboard for yourself, because really what the goal here is to transfer this tool to you, the R3 community, to start putting this tool to work. Now, what I'm going to do is start by giving a little background. Some of you have heard this before, but I think it's important to understand the genesis of this dashboard tool. And then I'd like to share some of the initial results. I think there might be some people on here who just want to know what we've learned about license sales in the first half of this year. So I'll go through the highlights, and then we'll look at the dashboard some directly, and mainly at that point, just answer questions from you all who hopefully are playing around with the dashboard while we talk. So with that, I'm going to jump into the background. And again, Kristen, please jump in if any questions pop up that you think are pertinent to break in and answer. I have no problem with that at all. I'm just one person to ask a question. There's 2 or 3 more that have the same question in their heads. So the data dashboards, these licensed, the fishing and hunting license dashboards, began back in the WAFWA. That's when the WAFWA, what is now the R3 committee, was discussing how to implement the R3 action plan from the council. The overall need to help track trends and evaluate R3 efforts to see if anything new needed to be done. Well, back at that time, Oregon volunteered. It was the first state, and they had a whole series of tables they wanted to track information they wanted from dashboards that was developed by the R3 committee. And the first one we did was on paper. It wasn't an immense amount of data, and it took 4 months or so just to get all the information together, the data cleaned up. And you end up with an 1.5 inch thick document, which no one reads things that thick. So it was mentioned that, hey, we need to go ahead and try an electronic dashboard. Go ahead and use Tableau dashboard tools and convert this to something simpler. At that point, the National Shooting Sports Foundation stepped in and provided the seed money to test it, to pilot electronic dashboard for the state of Oregon, and it worked well. Other states saw the dashboard and started having their own developed following the same formula. Well, all that first was maybe around 2015 or so when it began, and I apologize if I'm off on the date specifically. I've never been really good with dates. But then around 2017, dashboards started becoming noticed by industry, both the hunting, shooting, and the fishing sides, and the various NGOs that are heavily involved with R3, and saw this as a tool to help us track participation at the regional and national levels. Because at that time, all we had was information that came out 1.5 years late from the service on certified license sales, which had no breakouts by gender and other demographics who's buying licenses. Only source that gave us that consistent information across the country was the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's 5-year survey, which is still an extremely valuable tool, but every 5 years doesn't really help us to monitor daily R3 programs. So the dashboards were seen as filling a critical gap in the information need. So with that, grants were put together, led by industry and NGOs, and we spent about 3 years here developing these dashboards. And now We've had a couple in the past that were preliminary, but now we have enough states participating where all the partners are saying, hey, this is a tool we need to start sharing. With careful notes, which I'll pass along to you. And we now have this tool where we can track participation on a much more timely basis than we're able to in the past. I want to touch base first with who the partners are. We have 9 major partners, including the AFWA. AFWA is represented by the Tech and Data Committee. The staff has been extremely helpful too in this process. And among the partners, we have 5 major sources of funding to help bring this about. Year-to-year funding's been from the Sport Fish and Wildlife Restoration Fund to Multistate Conservation Grants. We're very grateful for those. And then the logos you see are the organizations that put cash into the project to help develop those initial pilots to demonstrate and learn, is it feasible? And does this have the value we think that we know that we need? The partners then decided last month that yes, we're at a point now where we want to release these dashboards out to the R3 community, start having the R3 community put this information to work. So thank you to all the partners and the funding sources. I do want to stress that for the partners, these dashboards are available. It's posted right now to ASA's website, but we would love to pass it on for posting at other partners' websites should they choose. That way it's readily available to all those who need it. So again, if you haven't downloaded it, if you just joined in, go to the website right here, open the dashboard, and while you're doing that, I'll give you a little background on limitations. In discussions with the partners, we came to a conclusion, which to me is a very, very important and valid conclusion, that is, this is not a tool that we necessarily think needs to be sent out to the general public, because there are limitations to the data, like all data sources, and it's possible that someone might misinterpret or misuse the data. So we want to promote it within the R3 communities, within the state fish and wildlife agencies, but this is not something we're going to put together a press release and send out to the general public. Mainly because we think the public might misinterpret it as saying this is showing the trends for all hunting participation and all fishing participation. And only a custom survey really could do that sort of thing. I want to stress that this current dashboard, depending on the data you're looking for, is going to be based on 15 to 19 state agencies. So it's not the entire US. So the dashboard, we have national pages. It's not all 50 now, it's 15 to 19 states. We have 7 more states in the works where the data just were not in the right format for this current version, or we're just waiting for lawyers to sign papers and so forth. We have more states beyond that that have committed to joining, but just starting the process. So that's one thing. When it says national or regional, it's really based on a sample of states within those areas until we get more participation. These are flat numbers. They just tell you percent up, percent down for different types of licenses and different types of license buying groups. They don't report the reasons what's driving these numbers. And that's what I'm really, really interested in. And I'll show you these results in a minute, and you're going to have a lot of questions too about why and why not. I do want to stress that there are 2 grants out there, one held by American Fisheries Society and another one, National Shooting Sports Foundation, that are going to do further research into these trends starting after the new year. We'll go back, pull samples from states with states, of course, and talk to people about why they bought a license for the first time during the COVID surge, but did not buy previously and so forth. So we'll be more work coming along those areas, and there's others investigating this topic too. Of course, being based on license sales data, we don't include youth, and we don't have seniors for all the states where youth and seniors do not need to have licenses. And of course, there's landowner exemptions in some states and other things that might could affect the trends. And then, of course, the state might have a regulatory change or a price hike, which impacts participation that people not in the know might misinterpret a jump in the numbers to be a change in people's interest. It may not be true. So with that, I hope you have the dashboards open and start playing around with it. While you're doing that, I want to just give you my initial insights, things I thought were very interesting in the dashboard. So if you're just looking for an update in the latest trends, I'd like to share that with you first, then we'll go into the dashboard. Looking at hunting license sales, recognizing this current dashboard that you're looking at is only January through June. So it picked up late hunting in January in some states, and it picked up turkey season. And then in some states that sell licenses on an annual basis or sell combo licenses are picked up in there too. But the majority of 2020's hunting license sales are not in this current dashboard because that typically starts into August, September, depends on where you are in the country. So just for the first half of the year, what the dashboards are telling us is that the number of residents who are buying hunting licenses grew 11%. I don't know if you can see my cursor here as I'm moving around, but number of residents who bought a hunting license increased 11% the first 6 months of this year compared to last year. At the same time last year, we saw a 3% increase in residents buying hunting licenses. So we went from 3% growth last year to 11% growth the first half of this year. What's intriguing is the growth rate in female participation. We knew already that females had a faster growth rate in getting into hunting than male, but it's really pronounced here. You see that in the first half of this year, the increase in number of women buying resident hunting licenses is up 25%. It was up 21% last year. The growth rate in males buying licenses is only 6%. So it's 4 times greater growth rate in women buying hunting licenses versus males. This time last year, we actually saw a 1% decrease in the numbers of men buying hunting licenses. So we're glad to see the increase, but I'm looking forward to the surveys to dig more into why the growth rate might be faster with women. It might be something we want to chat about here as a group afterwards. The age group showing the greatest growth rate is the 18 to 24-year-old segment, where it's up 17%. The age group with the slowest growth rate in license sales in the first half of this year was 55 to 64-year-olds, only up 1%, which is better than the negative to 0 rates we've seen in recent years. So again, all this is for the first half of this year, unless I've marked it for 2019. Kristen, any questions so far?
Not so far. I think you've been pretty cleared at this point, so we'll just keep rolling.
Okay. Alrighty. Now, in the dashboards, you'll see in there, you can look at information by the number of people who bought a license. We have it into the number of new recruits. These are people who have not been observed buying a license in the last 5 years. We could go back longer, but not many states have enough data going back that many years in electronic format. But the big question during the COVID period is, hey, how much of the surge is being driven by people who are new to our sport? And the answer is a lot. For example, the number of residents who bought hunting licenses in the first half of this year is up 37%. So 37% growth in the number of residents buying their first hunting license. Last year at this time, we only saw 1% growth. So a huge spike. So whether they're turkey hunting or buying combo licenses, we don't know that yet. That's something we have to dig into further, which we will in that next round of research. But what's really interesting to me in all these numbers is the growth rate in women's participation. It is way up there. 47% growth in the number of women buying their first hunting licenses, at least in the last 5 years. Phenomenal number. I wish we knew more about it. The follow-up surveys, you've heard me talk in the past, you know I'm not a believer in that people go hunting or fishing because they happen to be female or a certain age. There's core motivations that drive them. So we're going to explore those motivations or reasons why they're going hunting. We'll compare that to males and try to look for tidbits that we can use to help improve our marketing efforts. The growth rate in males is much higher than it was a year before. 13% growth rate in the number of males buying their first time hunting licenses in a number of years. The growth rate is the fastest in that younger category again, 32% increase. I don't know, we cannot cross tab in the dashboard with do custom work to find out of this age group what percent are females. That's something that can be done, probably will be done later, but we don't have that at our fingertips right now. And the growth rate in new recruits among older folks is also up a little bit versus gradual decline. There's other information in the dashboard. I'm not going to walk through all of it now. The year-end dashboards, those that cover 12 months, have churn rates in there. It's just not possible to report churn rates for half of the year because they might buy in July or August. So churn rates for a 6-month period can be misleading. So you only will see churn rates reported on the annual dashboards. The next one should be out around March, covering all of 2020, if not before. We also have the dashboard participation rates. That's the percentage of the public buying hunting and or fishing licenses. And that's important from a political relevance standpoint. So interesting information. Let me jump to fishing real quick here. Fishing was, as most of you know, the peak period for fishing license sales in the country is typically April through June. So the peak period was covered in the first half of this year, right in the middle of the COVID issues, and is captured in this current license dashboard. Number of residents buying fishing licenses was up 15% versus 1% growth the year before. Female participation rate was up quite a bit too, just like we see in hunting, after a very slow growth in 2019. Males showing the same difference between females and males pretty much in fishing, as we also see in hunting. And as before, the fastest growth is in the younger folks. This is good because about 10 years ago, looking at national survey data, 20 years ago, we saw decreases in the number of younger folks getting into fishing and hunting. Back then, we're theorizing that there's just so many more choices for them to do versus previous generations. But now we're seeing increases in this category, which is great. And the older folks, not concerned by them because from a marketing standpoint, it's the younger folks, of course, we want to market to make sure we get good return on investment over time. New recruits, huge spike. And we all heard the anecdotal information, seen families and people out in lakes and ponds. We haven't seen the numbers in the past. Number of residents who are buying a license for the first time was up 51% the first half of this year. It was only up 1% same time previous year. A lot of that, the growth rate is highest among women, 49%. Much higher growth rate in males buying fishing licenses than we saw in hunting. But again, it was not hunting season really during the first half of the year. And the big growth too in new recruits coming into fishing from the younger category. But missed a percentage sign. We saw a 55% increase in the oldest group of licensed buyers too. So that was nice. So you could theorize that they're buying a license to get out with their kids or their grandkids. Could be true. There's a lot of speculation we could talk about, but more research will be conducted to get those answers. And just like hunting side, there's churn rate information, participation rate information in the dashboards. Churn rates you will only see in the year-end dashboard, which you can access. So I'm going to switch screens here. Chris, are we good to switch the discussion?
Yep, go for it.
All right. So if you don't have the dashboard open in front of you, I have it here on my screen right now. And you can see along the top of it that you have choices. You can pick the year you want to compare to. Right now I have 2020 to 2019. Let's say you want to have fishing up here on the screen. You can change it. If you want to see fishing or fishing, hunting combined, you can click that. Over here, you can click what type of metrics you want to look at. In the select metrics, you can click either number of participants, which is showing on the screen, the participation rate, again, that's a percentage of the state population within these age parameters that buy a license, and you look at the number of new recruits. So you click it, give it a moment while the numbers all update. It's all done automatically. I'm working from a hotel room right now, and the bandwidth is pretty slow, so it's been pretty slow to update for me. But when all goes through, mine is totally reset on me. My bandwidth crapped out. Let me go back and reset this. So this is why I want you all to look at it on your own, because the hotel room keeps kicking me back out and back in. Let's see. So you can click hunting. You can choose the state down here you want to look at. So if you're participating, you can see your own state, and then you can compare yourself to the regional averages. So all I'm going to do over here is we have the mid-year to tell you what, I'll click this to the United States. And all the numbers automatically change. So you can see here in the last 5 years, you see the spike from 2019 to 2020. What's intriguing is that we're not at all-time highs in participation necessarily. What this COVID period did is it brought us back to where we were a few years ago. These are people still that bought 5 years ago, but what we've done is we've really cut down the churn rate, I believe. We did bring in new recruits, don't get me wrong. We saw those in the numbers already, big spikes in the number of new recruits. But new recruits here for hunting only make up 13.6% of all licensed buyers. So even if we tripled, a 300% increase in the number of new recruits would not explain the big jump in participation. The big jump has really happened by people coming back in who otherwise would have dropped out. So in 2016, people were dropping out. 2020, they found themselves at home with time on their hands and they're back into fishing. So that's a message we need to explore further from the R3 standpoint is what drew these people away from hunting and fishing over the last 4 years, 5 years? And how can we keep fishing and hunting top of mind to keep them active? And as marketers, that's always an ultimate challenge, a basic question we have to ask. When you scroll down, you can see here each individual numbers. You scroll over the screen, it breaks out the trends by non-residents versus residents. Of course, non-resident numbers are down because travel restrictions. But when you go to the fishing side, you're going to see some cases where the number of non-resident license sales actually increased over 2019. Very small, maybe 1%, 2%. And this is, I haven't had a chance to go look into this further, but we can speculate is that people who have second homes, who left more crowded urban areas, maybe where states are closer to each other, like in the Northeast. So fishing license sales for non-residents in some areas increased. Some states they did not, especially those states where you have to travel further by airplane or drive across multiple states. And that's a real problem, of course, because many states depend on non-resident dollars, whether it's fishing licenses or hunting licenses. So still some states really being hammered hard by this crisis. They are not seeing the benefits of this surge that other states are seeing. But down below here, you can see the trends by age category. So you can see the big spike here in hunting license sales this year for the younger crowd. You can see the growth rate is slower in other categories, but that's after several years of decline. So my generation, the Gen X generation, sometimes referred to as a lame generation when it comes to the outdoors, they've been seeing gradual downward trends in license buying for actually, you go back 15 years, but even they saw an uptick last year, and the older category stays flat. But you can see the response came here, younger folks, came from females, and of course, residents. At the bottom of the dashboards, especially if you have someone new looking at it for the first time, there are some documents here you can download. We have definitions, background information, how the dashboards were assembled. So if people have technical questions, go to here. We kept it short and sweet. My staff put that together. Feel free to contact us if you have more detailed questions. Some states, as mentioned, will have like a regulatory change, or it could be a way record sales are accounted for that cause a jump in the license sales. We try to note those when they're known to us. We put them here to help folks interpret the data. And then if you want to get some brief instructions on how to navigate the website, there's a JPEG document here with some notes. I think I've talked long enough, Kristen. I hope people have had a chance to play around the dashboard on their own a little bit, but I'm gonna turn it back to you to lead discussions and see if we have any questions.
Okay, awesome. So we don't have any questions in the chat, but I did wonder if anyone on here has played with this and might have a question about your specific state or your region, maybe for Rob while we have him here. So if that is the case for anybody, just let me know or raise your hand and I'll actually ask you to speak and ask your question. Okay. So while people play around with that a little bit and get their questions together, oh, go ahead.
Kristen, it's Sam. Maybe a point of clarification, Rob, is on the new recruit versus first time in a database, and some of the challenges of like newer data sets that people have with going online with license sales in the last 10 years. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. And that's one of those important limitations why we hesitate to make this a public tool, because people may not fully understand the data, but we as professionals do know. Yes, just because they're a new licensed buyer in your state doesn't mean that they're new to fishing. And we do take account for age, people who come into age when they need to have a license, but people move. Now, how many of us have lived in different states? You bought a fishing license, you might have been an avid hunter your whole life, but now you're considered a new hunter in your new home state. So there are issues there about what makes up a new hunter or a new angler. Likewise, too, most states can't go back and give us 10 or even 20 years of license data. So someone may have been an active hunter, for example, for years, but left, and life gets in the way. Maybe they moved to the city for a new job and had kids and never found the time to get away for 5 or 6 years, but now they're hunting, and they could be an expert hunter, but they're recorded by us as a new hunter. So there are anomalies in the data, but collectively put everybody all together, some of the error cancels out. But proportional changes year to year is really what we use in these results to help give us direction with the data. So don't hold them exact. Even another example here on the screen, for example, showing the number of participants is 4.5 million. Well, that's only for the states, who in this case, think about 18 states who are in this dashboard. So again, we don't recommend it to go public because people may say there's only 4.5 million hunters in the United States. And that's way underestimated. We know it's closer to about 15 to 20 million, depends on your number.
That's really helpful. And I know there's a lot of regions that are meeting. CAFWA and NIAFWA are meeting in the next 3 months, and then MAFWA and WAFWA meet in January. What benefits are there from, approaching this as a region? And if there's any regional R3 community chairs on the call, how can they help other states in their region? With some great tips there.
Yes, well, we've seen the regional R3 committees becoming much more active. It's a greater chance for states to launch cooperative ventures and to learn from each other. And that's what this dashboards will do. They'll help us to see when we have campaigns or programs in place, are the targeted audiences responding? You could have the same campaign going on across all states in a region, but some states are responding and some states are not. Gives us an idea of what we need to look for and when it comes to fixes or reasons that are holding back the effectiveness. Same time too, the dashboards are meant to help show potential emerging areas. For example, I showed greater declines in the Gen X category when it comes to buying licenses. Is that something you want to address? Or is that something that we just have to accept and focus on the younger categories? But we can see where problems might lie that need attention that we didn't notice in the past. Another thing I want to stress too, and again, someone's raising their hand, please cut me off and let them speak. But even the NGOs and industry, Liz Ogilvie of ASA wanted me to pass along the importance of this tool to industry, because they're constantly being asked to invest in R3 programs, whether it's local or national. And of course they want to. It's the future of their businesses. They need to create new clients to buy, new customers to buy their product. But until they have confidence that the money is going to the right place, going in the right direction, they hesitate, whether it's donating money or donating product. They need to know, because they're accountable to their owners, whether it's an outside company who owns them or whether it's stockholders. They have to show they're putting the money in the best place possible. And so this kind of tool gives them confidence to acquire the resources to put into R3, which will benefit industry.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, and there's some industry people on the call here. Might have gotten a text from me asking if you'd like to chat, so feel free.
Who is that, Samantha?
I don't think they raised their hand yet.
Okay.
No,
I have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go. Rob, we talked previously about kind of like a minimum sample size for each of the regions to have representative data. Do you know how many more states in each region we still need to recruit to the dashboards to have that minimal sample size, which would theoretically allow this to go more public?
Yes, yeah, we don't have regional results here for the Western region. We actually lost 1 or 2 states there. They're still participating, but they just were not able to get their data to us for this go around, whether staff changes or COVID issues, of course.
Sure.
And the Northeast. We need states in those regions especially. I'd like to have at least 3 if they're 5 states. 4 is preferred. But we just with good, proper conscience can't declare a trend for a whole region based on 2 states.
Right.
But
Definitely.
we had
So
the last dashboard, which covered 2019, which you could see here by choosing the years on top of the screen. We had the Northeast region in there, I believe. We just didn't get one of the state's data in time for the first half of this year.
okay.
If there's not a question there, I'm going to jump on a sidetrack about the future of these dashboards.
Yep, go for it.
Because the point you just raised is a key one. Everybody's used to instant information. I mean, we can all go on the computers and see what the COVID counts were as of yesterday. And we're not getting that with license data. And it's just the demand, the load on states to send these data to us, and then the processing time it takes. Because once we get the raw data, we have to go in there and look at the churn rates for every individual who bought any privilege in the last 5 to 10 years. It takes time. And ideally, we would have had this information on the COVID surge, what happened then, back in July, on the 1st of July. And the partners want more timely information. When I say the partners, it's the NGOs, it's the state agencies, it's industry, who I showed earlier on the screen. We want this to be more timely, and we realize that we're always going to be slowed down to a sense, depending on the states to forward their data. Sometimes they can, sometimes they cannot. So what we're doing now is on behalf of all the partners, the Archery Trade Association submitted a proposal with ASA's support on that, on behalf of all the partners, to develop a real-time dashboard. It uses technology that's already in place. It's the same technology used by the states and local county governments to upload their COVID data. It's called API technology, and don't ask me to go any further than that. We'll have experts doing it. And we're going to try to build these pipelines into the state agency directly. So we receive the data probably on a daily basis, if not weekly. And then we'll have the routines in the background. I'll just rapidly calculate the results. So the idea is we'll have dashboards coming out near instantaneous. We'll see how it works out, but we need at least 6 states, hoping for 12. So if there are any states here already that know they're already in an API situation, that is, their license data are hot linked out to other sources, we'd love to work with you. We know there's about 20 states already do that, share license data for one reason or another using that technology. We'll approach those. But this current version of the dashboard you see now we're hoping to be an interim solution for the next 2 years till we can build this real-time dashboard and get enough states participating. It's not the technology that's the issue. In all these dashboards, the real issue is securing the data, either having it uploaded, or in most cases, getting the permission. Some states have all sorts of legal restrictions on sharing license data, and a few are just flat out prohibited no matter what we've tried to do. So that is what we have to overcome. States being able to share their data and share it on a timely basis. And the API dashboard, we're hoping, can help overcome that and get us the data much more faster.
Yeah, I know permissions is tough to work around, especially because it's different for every state. So we do have a couple of questions here in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie from Virginia says, are there plans in the future to collect more demographic data like ethnic background?
We try. For a number of states, and Virginia was one where we developed a custom dashboard, and we would have that information in there because it's in the state license databases. Ethnicity, and race information is not collected by all the states. If we have a majority of states, say once we have, say, 7 or 8 states, I'll take it back closer to probably about 12 states that have that information, that's certainly something we could consider, because we want the same information also. But right now, too few states actually collect that information and store it in their data systems. And that's our limiting factors. We need information that is pretty much universal across the states.
Yeah, that's something we're looking at with the implementation work group too, is standardizing data and what every state should be collecting and how to collect it and from what programs. So I think we're not far enough along yet to quite do that. But if you only require 12 states, I bet we could scrape together 12 states out of 50. But of those that have permission to share data, I think that's probably a few years down the road. Would you say, Rob?
I would think so, because we have to build into the whole system. It would be at least a year to do that. It would be ideal, but we're just kind of beholden with states' data. Another quick little sidetrack based on some of the comments you just made right there before we get to other questions. What's that one? I just totally sidetracked it again. I lost that thought. It was about the collecting of the license data. That's good. Good. Next question will come back to me. I'll pass it on.
Okay.
I'll write it down next time.
A couple more rolling in here. So sure. Ryan from Arizona says, would this dashboard have the future potential to break down hunters by species type by maybe looking at things like turkey stamps, waterfowl stamps, deer tags, or species-specific big game draw permits?
Thanks, Ryan. That's thought I had in my head. So yes, we can. And for individual state license dashboards, we've done that, where we report by type of license. Some states had maybe 15, 16 different types of licenses. You could, on the top of the screen, you could scroll up here, I'll do my screen, you could select the privilege, and we haven't lumped fishing and hunting here, but you could select the individual type of license. So for states that, if we have, again, a significant number that have a turkey stamp or have an archery stamp, yes, we want to report that. We are wanting to report archery in these dashboards here, and states start reporting their data, but then it fell through again. Some states were going to provide that number back, come from one department, while license data came from another department, and that has been the kind of continual challenges that we have. So yes, we could. We just need enough states who have the data, and we'll pass it in.
Cool. Love the expansion. Tamar asked about providing data by demographics appended from third parties or tapestry segments, and I think that would be pretty tough to do from this. Tapestry, from what I know about tapestry, you have to be pretty queued into a certain area to get good data from that, and I'm not sure this provides area data. Does that make sense?
Yes, again, for custom state dashboards, we have put heat maps in there, use GIS component. Okay. But these data, and I think Ben might be on here, Ben Scuderi from my team, he can maybe speak to it further if you're able to pull him in. The data can be exported to some extent. When you scroll down, for example, on a particular metric, you can hover over numbers and you can actually pull out some of the data. I don't know if we can do it in the live version, but I know on the desktop version we can, but there might be something that we could export on behalf of the states if they want to combine that with Esri to do their own analysis. But we don't have lat long built into this one. In fact, in the dashboards, I don't care how good a hacker you are, if you could break open this dashboard, you will not see any individual records, because we summarize that data, transfer it over to this system, then build these dashboards. So
yeah, exactly.
Go ahead.
Well, additionally, like in this effort, we have refrained from asking states to provide address information for the customers, just because that's been a hurdle that a lot of them can't share that information just because of different privacy agreements they have. So right now, we're not asking for customer addresses. If we did ask for customer addresses, then it would theoretically be possible to append that tapestry information. Yeah. But the current layout really isn't set up to do that. So I think that would probably need to be a separate view.
Right, that involves with legal reviews to make that happen too. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yep, no problem.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really interesting. I kind of forgot that this originated from just state-based data, and you could actually run reports on just the states. So that's awesome. Okay, Jennifer in Tennessee says, so has the council or IWG come up with what to do when you see certain license trends? When we see growth in areas, that does not mean what does that mean we need to do? Sorry, I can't read. If some area is low, what do we need to do? So as far as the council and IWG goes, we have those threat documents, obviously, that are outlined in the national plan. And so those outline some of what we need to look at in the future. And IWG is definitely working on how to overcome some barriers that may lead to these trends. But as far as, if we see a dip in this demographic, specifically what to do, we haven't gotten that in detail, but I know there's the marketing resource that, if you're trying to market to a specific group, we do have marketing best practices housed on a website that I'll put in the chat, and that might help. Jennifer, I know that wasn't very in depth, but I mean, you know what we've done with the work group because you're in it. So if you want to expand on that, go for it.
Another question to put out there, or a reference, is the National Hunting and Shooting Sports Action Plan. Rob mentioned this early on, had an appendix in it. So this was written from 13 to 15 and then released in 2016 for perspective. Appendix B of that document, I linked it right there, basically was the scorecard: hunting and fishing license sales, what to look for, what type of information to collect. So if you're looking at your licensing categories and want to look at some of the recommended practices from the national plan, check that out. And then with the IWG, the purpose of the IWG was to advance implementation of the R3 National Hunting and Shooting Sports Action Plan further. So the marketing resources are one way to take advantage of those trends. We actually have another sub-work group going on right now trying to identify what next steps we have to take. There's been a lot of work done on licensing and data dashboards. And so we're taking a moment to kind of look around and say, where do we need to go next? The APIs will be a big part. Species, other facts. You've already identified like some of the key barriers or key weaknesses, we'll call them, in our data right now. So trying to figure that out and trying to figure out if we can move forward with that or not will be done in the next probably 6 months, I would say, just for some background. Question for Rob.
Yep.
How would you use the license trends presented in the dashboard in comparison to the national survey data?
Is the whole timeliness issue. Number one, this is more precise on a state basis and regional basis because it's not a survey. It's actually a census of those people who need a license. Again, need a license is key. So basically everybody's 16 to 64 is included in here because every survey, again, has some level of error, but we're doing a full count. We've got them all. So you can look at your progress right now, at least every 6 months, and see if an increase is happening or not. Because say in a survey, you might see a 3% increase, which is typically good when you're dealing with mass numbers of people. That's a nice increase. But you might have a 4% error in your survey. So in reality, you might have had a decline, but you think you've got a victory and you're off celebrating, wanting to do more of it. You're not having any effect at all. So it's the precision that you get with the dashboards is critical. Another quick sidetrack, which I love doing, a number of states are building their own dashboards with help from their license vendors. That's awesome. You need to do that because then you can customize it down to your particular types of licenses and maybe by county and so forth. For those states, we'd love to have you join the dashboard if you're not in here, because all we need is just have you pipe your data to us or have your license vendor send it to us and have no burden on your staff. We'll put you in the regional national picture. So now you can compare yourself to other states, and we can get that regional national support from industry and NGOs, be able to set direction and policy, whether it's at a regional R3 committee or whether it's at a national body like one of the AFWA committees and the funding, the grant sources. This kind of information will give them the precision they need to make confident decisions. And when you're confident in your data, you're more likely to invest more in it than you would otherwise. So I think I said 4 things at one time. I hope that helped.
It definitely did. I know part of the webinar ad for this session was about hunting season in 2020, and we have some great partners on here. There's a pretty diverse crowd from industry partners, licensed database partners, and states as well. I want to know what you guys are doing for your marketing strategy as you go into fall. I'm expecting that like you're encouraging people to get outdoors, connect with nature, but have you changed anything? What information are you putting out there that's different? Any changes occurring? You can either chat it or speak up. All right, not all at once.
There.
Yeah. Well, so the question I have in mind, and one of the projects that the council is going to be doing with Southwick Associates is in December, the first week of December, y'all get a reach out from Rob and I. And it's going to be to ask you to share data. And Rob, you can give some of the details, but the reason we're doing this is to help get an idea of license trends as we head into the trade shows, and to help people promote that if license sales are up, by how much and states, to give a perspective there. But more importantly, there's a marketing strategy that if it's popular, everyone else will want to do it too. So we hope to have some good figures to share with people and encourage them to get outdoors. If everyone else is doing it, why not try it too? It's a cool thing to do. So we're hoping that that data can help us make some media pitches, maybe work with some of our coordinators to set up some podcasts and everything. Kind of one of our strategies to test out as we head into the fall months here. Rob, did you want to share anything about that?
Yes, Lisa Parks will be out there asking everybody the information. And is that about time up? Lisa Parks, look for her. She'll be asking for the data. It'll be simple requests, not the full data, but just summary numbers. We do need your help. Thank you.
Kristen, was there any other questions we received?
Not seeing any. I saw Olivia came off mute, but I'm not sure if that was a mistake. So if nobody has last minute questions, I think we are good to wrap up.
If you're not on the dashboards, please join. There's no cost to it. It's free. It is free. And I'll say it again, there's no cost to it. It is free. Lisa Parks and our staff is a contact. We need more states to join. Love to have you. We can get you the details.
Awesome. And Kyle Larimore from Missouri just put in the chat that Missouri would like to expand their dashboard to include their event data and look for trends or links from event participants to license buyers. Okay. It's a huge step to learn more about who's attending events and if they are continuing their journey to buy permits. That's a really pivotal idea, I think, and definitely the direction that we want to go with this is connecting it back to everything else.
Absolutely. That's the holy grail of data from R3, I would think. We need that.
Cool. Amanda says that Oregon is currently doing that.
Oh.
And is Oregon one of the membership states with the dashboards, Rob?
Yes. Yeah, they some reasons they couldn't get into this current one, but they started it and they've been in every one since.
Okay. Eddie also wants to know if Virginia is a partner.
Yes, they used to have a custom dashboard, but they're now involved. Again, we had issues getting their data in for this current go around. Some states had just slowdowns with COVID. IT folks couldn't get to it. But yes, Virginia's in there, and we've got dashboards for them going back a few years. If Eddie wants them, we can get them into contact with the right people.
Perfect. And one more from Matt Bartley from Utah. He says, in Utah, there hasn't been much discussion about capturing the newbies in our marketing effort yet. But we're still proceeding with our standard marketing plan and R3 efforts. So I don't know, Rob, if you have any recommendations on that front?
So as in adding newbies to their marketing plans?
Yeah.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, well, this project, we have 2 grants coming up, one for hunting and one through fishing, through NSSF and AFS, to go talk to these newcomers, the new licensed buyers this year, and find out why did they buy this year, why not in previous years, so we know what we can do to help more people to become more licensed buyers. You got to talk to them. Either you can help with our study, Utah can join our project coming up. We need states to join the project. They'll get the results for free. Or Matt, feel free to give us a shout. We can give you some ideas there too. But bottom line is, you got to talk to these people who have a high level of interest but not made the step, and those who have just made the step, and find out what can we do to make it easier to remove some of these roadblocks and help more of them make that step.
Perfect. It looks like everybody got what they needed. So Rob, thank you so much for your time and your explanation and your expertise on this. I think it's safe to say we're all really excited to see where this goes in the future and how we can all be a bigger part of this project.
Great, thank you for the time and opportunity. I really appreciate it. We appreciate it.
All right, everyone, have a great afternoon and the rest of your week, and we will see you virtually pretty soon. Bye, guys.